I figure if I can be in a hot tub while working or not working, I should be. I generally don't like to day drink, but I did start having eggnog at like 4.
Baby, since we've been together,
I've never really written fiction before. I'm primarily a nonfiction writer and media maker, and then an editor at DC Vertigo, which is an imprint that I grew up loving. Sandman, The Invisibles, just tons and tons of titles that were really perfect for like a horny, cerebral, ultra-violence obsessed teenager in a small town, which was me. Having a house party, so I drank whatever people kept putting in front of me. Finish up whatever you were talking about, and you can't get ready, nothing can prepare you, so just do your best. I stayed hydrated and I ate a lot. So yeah.
I love it.
I try to be in a hot tub whenever possible. It's where I do my best work, my best thinking, so. And I figure since here I am with Math Magazine to talk about sexy things, I should be engaging in my primary fetish, which is hot tubs. Hello, I'm Tina Horn. I'm in a hot tub. An editor from DC Vertigo reached out to me after listening to my podcast, Why Are People Into That?, which you can listen to wherever podcasts are heard, and asked me if I would be interested in developing a comic, and I said yes, and I pitched SfSX. I pitched the idea of a queer sex worker dystopia, and he said that I like that idea, and so then we developed it, and yada yada yada, now it's an image and it exists. Fiction storytelling is an empathy machine. The thing that is fun about making a comic that is for grown-ups, not porn, but is about sexuality, it makes sense to have it also be sexy and be erotic. So let's actually start on the credits page here. So my editor and designer is Lauren McCubbin, and I know her from back in the day in Oakland, and also she is the co-creator and illustrator of a really important queer sex work text written by Michelle T called Rent Girl. So she's definitely part of very important lineage. So she like does this page here, which has my little like sort of letter from the creator to the readers, and I make a playlist that I post on Spotify for every issue. So she just kind of does the design here. This art is by my friend Tamara Santibanez, who's done a lot of my tattoos and is an amazing leather queer fine artist. I specifically am featuring the work of Alejandra Gutierrez, who also then, you can see side by side here, this is an early sketch of the cover that she did for issue 3. So Alejandra is a trans woman of color who is also an out sex worker, who, and just like an incredible cartoonist and illustrator and comics artist. And I had the idea of bringing her onto the series to do kind of like a pop-in issue, which I'll just skip ahead and show you a little bit of her work. So again, this is like the credits page by Lauren McCubbin, and actually these pictures are significant because they are taken by my friend Maxwell Lander, who I've made some porn with before. This is just like a big fucking party of all of my favorite artists and friends that got to got to contribute in all kinds of ways to this story. So Alejandra did this issue, which actually I'll show it to you side by side with the art from issue 2. So Michael Dowling was the main artist for the first few issues and had to move on to draw Star Wars, which I'm very excited about for him, a Star Wars comic. But so he kind of established the gritty realism of the story in the first few issues, and also I think taught me a lot about how to stage an action sequence. So I feel grateful to have worked with Mike, and then so contrasted here with Alejandra's work in issue 3, much more cartoony, much more like sort of fizzy and frothy, and just like much more I think like organically queer and erotic and funny. She does a lot of really great sight gags, but she also does really interesting work like this that is almost this like psychedelic glitchiness of somebody being on screen and then seeing them sort of like behind the scenes, behind the camera. And in this issue we get to see behind the scenes of the Dirty Mind, the new Dirty Mind, which is in a bathhouse on the edge of town that they sort of squatted in and built up since the raid that opens the series. And so this was just a chance for Alejandra and I to collaborate on like what would sort of be like the utopia within the dystopia of just like a gritty squat that has been transformed into a pleasure palace. And another example of an artist who I commissioned to make some work that grounds the science fiction of the series in real life circumstances was Laura Chow, who does these awesome sort of schemas. And we collaborated on this piece for the back of the issue on why the decriminalization of sex work is a queer issue. And this is an example of how great it is to work with Image Comics, because they let me have the political agenda that I have and say like sex work should be decriminalized, which for a lot of people would be very controversial and they might not know if they want to publish something that says that so explicitly. And I really appreciate Image for giving me the space to do that and not giving me any grief about it. I'll show you a little preview from the back matter of issue 4 is that starting with issue 5, this artist here, Jen Hickman, who you can see here with me at their booth at FlameCon, is going to start being the main artist of the series. And here's some example of Jen's character sketches and an interview that I did with them. And, you know, just having a queer, genderqueer artist whose work also has engaged in queer themes before, as well as sci-fi and horror and porn, just is so exciting. This is a cover by Tula, and this one, and I just think that her work is so fucking elegant and gorgeous and also not afraid of violence, which is, it's amazing. I love an artist who is as comfortable with eroticism as they are with horror and ultraviolence. That is like what I need in a collaborator. I love that kind of creativity. So yeah, a lot of really amazing visual collaborators that have taught me so much. And then one other collaborator that I have had that I am excited to talk about is Jack the Stripper, who is, where's Jack? This is Jack. So she's an amazing comics artist and sex worker, writes loudmouth and illustrator and comedian and just multi-hyphenate. And she has a web store called Strippers Forever, and she does sort of fashion collection collaborations with different artists and sex workers. One nice thing about getting into comics is going to conventions from the biggest ones like New York Comic Con to smaller niche ones like FlameCon, which is for queer creators, and getting to meet people, go to their tables, see their comics, but then also see the art that they create, the fan art that they create. And I had followed Chris Anka's work for a while, and then going by his booth, seeing that he had made a portrait of Ariana Grande, I was like, I will buy that from you and have it. I didn't know anything about high heels or really any fashion, especially femme fashion, before I became a sex worker. So I was like, I have not spent all this time learning about all of these details about what a 6-inch stiletto versus a 7-inch stiletto, and what a peep toe means, and what a red bottom means. I haven't spent all this time learning about all this fetishism to just have you make something that looks like the high heel emoji. I lived in New York for almost 10 years, so being able to write about the Bay with a little bit of distance, not only in my own life, but also with what I have seen happening with gentrification of all kinds, cultural and definitely sexual gentrification in San Francisco, as well as class and race and all this other intersecting identities and issues of gentrification. And so seeing that through the eyes of my friends that do still live there was really important to me. I started doing sex work in Oakland in 2005. So I was like, this is great! Why would anyone not do this?
Didn't know all that money wasn't going to be there forever.
And I was like 24 and naive, and had a lot to learn about my privilege in being able to say being a dominatrix is the best improv game in town. Like, what could possibly be bad about this? And so, I've definitely been trying to dedicate my work to all the things that could be bad about it, and whose fault that is, which is what this book is about, definitely.
So we've already got cops at fault, clearly, because they take that shoe right to the face. There's
Spoiler.
another... Sorry.
No, it's okay. There's cops are mutilated by red bottom shoes in this one. Like I said, my background is in nonfiction and journalism, and in all seriousness, I believe when we first announced the concept of safe sex, there was a lot of response, some of which was glib and some of which was quite actually understandably angry about this is not a dystopia, this is real life. And I was like, I hear you. Trust me, that's the point, that's the idea. In my mind, the purpose of a dystopia, or my favorite kinds of dystopian fictions, are ones where the absurdity or the horror of society or institutions are tweaked just a little bit, so that the people who don't have to deal with that horror on a daily basis are like, oh god, that seems really awful. And we're like, yeah, motherfuckers, it's been this bad. It's already this bad. And then people are like, oh, I'm having so much empathy because of the power of storytelling and caring about these characters. And then hopefully then people are galvanized to stop being so complacent and look around them and change things.
People break up. Turn around and make up. I just can't see you never do that to me. With your baby, to being around you is all I